Okay, I think like this.
It looks like we're streaming.
Desperate as that sounds, yeah, yeah. Take these walls and rip 'em down. Take my and slip 'em now.
Where are we now? We live in a world where escapism is the norm. Why, do you ask? It's really quite simple. People are overwhelmed, processing things that go against the organism's will, a constant state of stress. I would even go as far to say distress. People have forgotten how to love. People in their discord of frantic nervousness and anxiety have replaced the natural order of things with something that the body can cope with. Escapism. That's a natural reaction of the organism in a fight or flight scenario. We have television. We have shitty music. We have sports. We have global events that boggle the imagination. We have avid gamers playing in surreal and often violent dimensions of reality which we call virtual. There is nothing virtual about any of this. It is a reality redefined. We are to believe that this more aptly titled virtual environment would have no effect on the corporeal one, but this is not the case. They are deeply intertwined on several levels. To interpret and interact with any environment, an input-output device needs to be configured. By the hands of intelligent design, we are input-output devices in the most literal and basic of functionality. The same can be said for our computing devices, which we literally created and have adopted as a symbiotic partner in this new world order. As much as we believe that we independently move in and out of this virtual world, it's quite opposite. This virtual world is more wrapped around and interfaced with every single aspect of every single movement we make, person we converse with, thought we publish, feeling we express. It allows us to interact in a digital pond where the ripples are forever moving outward, never disappearing, never dying, intersecting with other ripples, events, and always feeding that all but artificial reality. As you are willingly feeding this reality, it stores and manages your thoughts for you, remembers your phone numbers, remembers your family members' birthdays, tracks your physical movements, tracks your digital movements, tracks your stats, tells you when you need more data on your plan, tells you when to pay your bills. It remembers more and more to the point where you remember less and less, making room for more suitable program code to be inserted into your wetware brain, making room for more silly reality TV shows, cat pictures, and videos of people hurting themselves in front of the camera because that shit is really funny. This was the plan since just prior to 1967 when ARPA started building the ARPANET. About 20 years later, it was ready for the public to start using. They already had a functional internet for 20 years before the nobles and peasants were allowed to graze together in a new unified communication system. When people start understanding that they have been corralled into a digital prison where they live willingly in a case of massive Stockholm Syndrome, fake human interaction, social depravity, and worst of all, entitlement. Yes, you are fully entitled to do what you want and how you want to do it, no matter who you hurt. As long as you don't hurt the system, all will be forgiven. We are nearing the end of an era. Some of us have lifted our heads from our pillows and continue to spread the word. Others have also awoken and have used their knowledge for evil, or even worse, have done nothing at all to prevent further harm. I speak to the escapists out there. You may feel better with your head in the sand, but with your ass sticking out, you are a target nonetheless. It is inaction and apathy that is the enemy's greatest weapon against us. This weapon permeates through all realities and all environments, virtual, corporeal, and spiritual. The spirit of mankind is being broken. It is being erased. It is being reprogrammed. It is being discontinued to make way for a new type of human, a loyal human, an obedient human, a consumptive human, whether downloaded into the matrix to fulfill a digital life or to fight for survival on terra firma itself. We still have the final word on whether or not we are discontinued. So wake up, people. Peace.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Robert J. Morris, and welcome back for another STSH podcast. I'd like to welcome a good friend of mine, known as
Hey, what's up?
FYGP. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, pretty good, man. Just here, looking forward to a great show and discussing some interesting topics. So it's
So,
going to be amazing.
well, first off, though, hang on. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty here. You call yourself Free Yourself Globally Project, but that wasn't your original name, now was it?
No, my first name was actually Fuck You Google Plus. Uh,
Totally.
excuse me for cussing. I think we're okay. We don't cuss too much, but I mean, we don't need to censor ourselves.
No, no, not at
That's
all.
great.
As long
Okay.
within reason. I mean, we do things within reason, and it's all good. But
Yeah. So the name really came from like the all of the censorship that already began back in like 2013, 14 on
absolutely.
YouTube. And yeah, and now I changed it to Free Yourselves Globally Project because one of my channels was taken down. And I don't know, I think it has also good connotation and like ring to it. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. And well, I mean, crap. I mean, this whole thing has been a bit of a journey as far as the whole YouTube construct and everybody involved. It really has been a bit of a journey, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And like the fact that like no alternative platform gained traction is really I don't know, astonishing. And like I haven't seen any like alternatives that have even close to the amount of users to YouTube. And it's like everything is monopolized. For social media, you go on 3 or 4 sites, and like for videos, you go on YouTube mostly. And
Yeah.
I don't know, there's Vimeo and this and that, but like
Well,
many more people are here.
well,
Yeah.
it was about I don't know. I reckon about 3 years ago when basically, maybe 4 years ago when Google acquired YouTube, and then they forced all the YouTube users to get Google Plus accounts in order to link the software together. And it was like a force majeure move. It was pretty bizarre, actually, to see it play out because later they ended up disconnecting the accounts again, and woohoo, we got all the users. Yeah, yeah. Uh, the topic of the day is division and division tactics to put people against each other. And YouTube is one of those devices that have been used to put people against each other. Not to mention mainstream media, uh, cable, and in the real world, your George Soros funded groups like BLM and oh Christ, the feminist movement and Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, for fuck's sakes. Oh God, the list goes on and on and on. I don't know. You want to take it up from there, bud?
Yeah, I agree. And like, it's really kind of this cultural coercion, so to say, and like making everything, the lines between truth and lie blurry, and pushing both sides of the aisle, and putting out fake information all the time, repeating it, and eventually people start believing in the lies, and this eventually leads to the division between, be it like religion or politics or sports even. It's down to the nitty gritty, and it's quite a thing. It's quite become quite a strong division, especially in like recent years since like the last election, and especially on the political side.
It's becoming a phenomenon. I mean, for real, it's becoming an actual phenomenon now. I mean, okay, we got to back up a couple of steps because we have a new breed of folks involved, and we call them the millennials. However, a lot of these kids are being raised by the school system to be triggered by things that they find offensive. And I mean, this is the tail end of where we are now. This isn't even what's happened in the last 20 years, which believe me, is an entire podcast in and of itself. But what's happening now is the protectorates of our civilization are now basically useless tools, to be fair.
Yeah, and you cannot trust anybody. Like especially on coming like to controlled opposition and on channels or like people. You cannot like trust them blindly. And of course, you should never trust the mainstream media blindly. That is like probably the biggest mistake you can do because you will be, pitted against your fellow citizens, and you will constantly be in fear because North Korea is going to nuke the United States, for example,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're yeah,
Huh.
pretty much, and you're going to be triggered by things as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, I mean, look. I mean, shit. Um, in the old days, you'd see a statue of a guy who did some pretty horrendous shit. However, the actions of that guy shaped the pattern of civilization for the next X number of years. However, because of his actions nowadays, if they were found offensive, they want to tear down the statue and erase the history because it's offensive.
Yeah, like you saw that, I think, with Columbus, isn't it? And with General Lee from the Confederacy.
It was yeah,
And like,
it was a big Confederate thing that went down there. Yeah,
yeah,
and like, come on. What wasn't it like 3 years ago? Wasn't it 3 years ago? Just before Trump got, you know, put into his position where he was still riding, and some university, I don't even want to say which one, they got vandalized. It said "fuck Trump" everywhere, spray painted. And instead of actually retaliating like we would have done back in the day, somebody vandalized my campus, we would have tracked down the cocksuckers who did it, and we would have just vandalized their shit back. But no, 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 no. They shut down all the auditoriums and had a cry day.
oh my God, yeah,
Do you remember
the
this?
safe space.
Oh yeah,
I don't.
a safe space. Yeah.
Is it Mizzou? I don't know. Mizzou.
I don't even want to. I can't even. I don't even know exactly which campus it was. I don't even want to say because like they're probably anti-Trump now anyway because all of the lefty libtards are pretty much anti-Trump, and the funny bit about all this is that I don't give a rat's ass either way in either direction. To be honest, I mean, if Clinton got in there, Clinton 2.0,
Hmm.
how much better do you think it would be?
It would be a little bit worse. I don't. I know. I actually would be pretty much the same. I mean,
It would be
no matter
exactly.
who you elect, they're always going to be in somebody's pocket. They're always going to be like having to do the deeds of the intelligence agencies and like the military-industrial complex and sell arms to Saudi Arabia, sell arms to Israel, bomb Syria, this and that, and like it's reflected in their actions. And
Yeah.
like Trump is the perfect scapegoat for like the people who are truly in control because whenever something could go wrong in the next couple of years, they could easily just blame it on his alleged stupidity, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like the perfect scapegoat.
And you know what? As far as Trump is concerned, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, Trump is the very first of his kind in the presidency. He's the very first corporate zealot that you've ever seen. We've had actors, we've had former politicians, we've had all sorts go in, but this is the first time you've had a corporate fucking billionaire get into office. And guess what?
Yeah,
He brings his connections with him to the table, his worldwide collections of people, his blue chips, his offshore. Yeah, people go, oh, well, he was bankrupt. Give it a fucking rest. He was never goddamn bankrupt. He was bankrupt on American papers for the, what is it?
For the IRS,
The
yeah.
IRS, yeah. But other than that, give it a rest. He was never bankrupt. He was laughing all the way to the bank. Oh, God. I mean, his main corporate tower, like, where is that one located? That one's is that New York?
Yeah, it's Trump Tower in New York.
Yeah, the Trump Tower's in New York. That thing's fucking buttoned down tighter than the goddamn Pentagon.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, but it's crazy. It's a crazy world we live in. Like, I don't know. It's like people are becoming more addicted to all kinds of stuff, like becoming addicted to the fake information and like the real fake news, which is, of course, like the CNNs, you see. Like, I don't want to come over as like sounding like a Trump guy. I'm totally not. Like, I think whoever comes into power, they have to be pretty much compromised, and like they have some real blackmail on him and some real, probably issues, and they don't bring it up on the media. They just keep the divide and conquer psyop with his whole election and like the resistance movement going.
Well, I have to preface this by saying that I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not anti-Trump. Like I said, I'm on the fence, and I just don't really give a shit because I'm more of an anarchist. So, like, I don't think we need any of these assholes, to be fair.
Yeah.
But
we don't.
But I will say this for the record is that Trump's at least making an effort to make it look good. And, anybody who gets in his path, he'll just Twitter something. Oh, I'll just send it to Twitter. Fuck. I'll just send it a tweet. You thought you knew what you were talking about yesterday, but I'll just tweet this and go hammer yourself. Yeah. And what's funny is that people eat that up. They eat it up.
Yeah,
like,
they are.
They eat it up like hogs eat up corn on a Sunday. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I guess that's probably a great topic, a great first topic for the division tactics, because now we got Republicans against Democrats, and what the hell's that all about anyway?
I mean, it's about like about keeping the people on two teams and like realizing their dream of having basically a non-existent democracy, like a farce of a democracy.
Yeah.
Because like it's Stalin who actually said, like, I don't know, he did have some interesting quotes, and one of his interesting quotes was, "It's not the one who counts, who casts the votes, but the one who counts the votes, who decides who gets into power."
That's right. Yeah. I'm just gonna pull over some interesting shit here. I'm just gonna.
Yep.
No, but it's funny that you say that, because actual factual shit. I mean, Christ. If you look in history, you'll find that the strongest leaders had the highest death counts.
Pretty much. I mean, can't argue with that.
Yeah, and
go back into ancient times. Even it's the same.
All the way back, all the way back through time. I mean, it's a shitty thing to think of and to realize, but it's a true story, and this is what we have to deal with as a people. I guess this is part of smelling the coffee. You know what I mean? Like waking up and going, "Oh, hey, oh shit, oh yeah, something's not right." But how many people wake up every single morning, go do their job, if they got a job, if they're lucky enough to have a job, and then come home, and then they inundate themselves with primetime TV, talk shows, bullshit, and all sorts, and basically have their entire opinion formulated for them so that they can show up at work the next day and talk around the water cooler or at break having a butt and just having opinions that they don't even know that they share. Like, it's just so bizarre.
And like they're being inundated by these opinions, they actually heard them somewhere else, and then they pretty much just regurgitate what they heard somewhere else, and that's like not their opinion. It's like the opinion that was given to them by maybe Anderson Cooper, who they happened to hear last night on CNN talking about, I don't know, how the Russians shot down that plane in Ukraine, or I don't know, something like that. Like it's pretty funny.
Well, you know, they feed on the they feed on the fear for one, and then they also tug on the heartstrings of people. They go and say, "Oh, so and so died, and death is bad. Someone being killed is bad, and you can't disagree with that, because if you disagree with that, then you're a terrorist."
Yeah. I mean, but like when you bring up that that they're hypocrites because killing is only bad when somebody else does it, like not their sides, their country, I guess, NATO. I mean, if they do it, it's good killing according to them.
Yeah.
Like, but if somebody else does it, it's bad killing.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I think we should just say all killing is bad. And like, it's pretty obvious.
I think that we live in a world of double standards, and this is where, again, this is a good topic for division, because it is double standards. They create these double standards. Look at women in the military. Forget about the gays. Look at women in the military. This was a big issue back mid 1990s, and it's like, are we going to allow women in the military? Oh my God, I don't think other men could handle watching women die in the battlefield. It's like, well, what fucking battlefields did we have in the 1990s, for one? For two, it's different if they're working as medics and those hospitals get bombed rather than be in the field. Oh, wait, now we have to build separate battlefront bathrooms for them so that we can have, dual gender. Oh wait, don't get into the genderism right yet. Yeah, there's another division tactic, but yeah, let's not get into dual gender bathrooms in the field. No. I mean, Jesus crying out loud. I mean, it gets sillier and sillier and sillier the more that you break it down. I mean, getting into genders getting into genders and the military is a completely different story, like now as opposed to 15 years ago. It was absolutely ridiculous, but my God. Any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like if you are, a trained professional soldier, then you can handle pretty much anything, and like it's not going to make a difference if you see women dying next to you or men, because like, I mean, they can probably handle both. I mean, they've been on the field and probably combat for years.
Listen. I've partied with women who just be like, pull the car over. I gotta have a leak, and believe me, they could just go and fucking bust it out in a fucking heartbeat, and then back in the car they go, and let's move on. Yeah, I mean, I watched a girl just stomp on the windshield of a car just to get at her ex, and yeah, that's a whole other story. But Jesus crying out loud, but we draw these like ideas from what we think is right, and I guess it's our perceptions, collectively speaking. I think it's our perceptions that we think is what's supposed to be right, and then we draw from that. And then we get this mainstream inundation of what they're telling us is right. And they're two different goddamn pages.
Yeah, totally. And it's like two sides of the same story all the time. And like that's how it works, divide and conquer. Like that's the topic of the show.
Yeah.
You-
I mean, now let's get into the gays. I mean, crap. Now let's gaze into the army. Um, guess what? They were already there. They
yeah,
just didn't talk about it. Shit sakes. Oh, for the love of, it's you know what? It's almost ridiculous to talk about because I mean, the division was already there. It just wasn't prefaced by a mainstream argument, and then later they just pushed it the into the mainstream circa of contemplation, and people are just like, oh yeah, oh my god, I don't know what I think about that, while they're sitting around the water cooler talking to their buddies at break. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, gays, yeah, ooh, give it a rest. Like, again, it's another division tactic. It's again to push, because if you're not thinking about it, I'm pretty certain you don't give a fuck. But then once you're forced to think about it, it's like, oh, now I'm forced to make a decision. Now I have to pick the home team or the visiting team. You know what I mean? And it's like, and we're gonna come back and forth to this concept quite a lot tonight. Home versus visiting, because this is a division tactic. It's like, are you gonna go with what we tell you to go with, or are you gonna go with the others? Because if you go with the others, then you're the enemy. And this is basically what we're looking at.
yeah, exactly. You're either with us or against us.
Yeah,
like
just
George Bush said that.
just like George Bush said. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty much. Like you're not on board with, let's say, Agenda 2030 and like the whole, sustainable development agenda, then you're against us. Pretty much.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood.
The eugenics. I mean, it's essentially what it is because, like, they were telling people in the 80s, 90s that there's going to be a population crisis, that are going to be overfloated with people. And, like, look at us now. Like, most European countries can't even, like, have positive birth rates without bringing in hundreds of thousands of Muslim immigrants. And, like, it's like they told people to not, have too many children because it's going to be, like, hell. We're all going to be crunched into like 5 square meter apartments in the cities. That's not what happened. Like the birth rates dropped, and like the actually, like in many European countries, the population is going down now, and like it's like such a good trick to play on people. Like,
Well,
oh, you have to save the planet, have less children.
well, they said overpopulation would be a problem, but they didn't say where. I mean, crying out
Yeah,
loud. There's so much of this planet that can be totally populated. I mean, you still got, crying out loud, like 7/8
it's
of Canada still unpopulated. There's more
it's gonna
people.
be a problem
There's more people
like
in Mexico
Tokyo.
City. There's more people in Mexico City than all of Canada.
Yeah, I know. There's a city in China that has like more people than like Canada, pretty much by
Yeah.
10 million. By 10 million.
There's 30 million people in Mexico City.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I don't
close to,
know I
close to.
don't know the actual population of Canada, but I know that it's not much more than that, and that's all I can
Yeah, it's not
say.
much more.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, and like I think that somebody actually calculated that like if you would even settle the entire human population in an area as big as Texas, that everybody would still have like their own farm, stable, animals, and everything, and land. That everybody would have actually enough land, and it's like yeah, there's overpopulation in certain spots, like in certain cities for sure. Yeah.
So I'm being told that I'm too low again. Am I still too low?
Um, Wait, let me. You could put it up a notch, I think.
All right. We'll have to do that.
Sounds good. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm paying attention to the chat now. I wasn't before, but I am now.
Yeah, I wasn't either. So yeah, welcome everybody. Welcome Conspiracy Occult Illuminati and NWO Media Review. Great guy, seen him a lot of times. Welcome Delacroix and Awake Now. What's up?
Yo, 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 yo. Am I louder? Hang on, I got another one here. There we go. Check. Hey, am I loud now? I'm hitting the red. Check 1, 2. Checkity check.
Somebody from the chat.
Yeah.
Somebody from the chat. Time it.
Please, somebody from the chat, sound off. All right.
I think we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. So divide and conquer, right? You see it everywhere. Like, I was reading that book by Swiss author Daniele Ganser about NATO's Operation Gladio, and like all of the things that they would do after it, and like they would essentially like even infiltrate like those communists in Italy that were allegedly behind the bombings and like stage the flag, the false flag, blame it on them. Maybe have like an inside people perpetrating those things, and then just push so hard on both sides of the propaganda and on both sides of the issues to like for people to not know what's happening anymore, basically, and people to live in fear and like being scared of another far left terrorist attack in Italy. And actually, it's documented that most of them have been perpetrated by the CIA and like by the intelligence communities, and like we have seen that in so many European countries because essentially like you have NATO stay behind from like NATO. That's what they're called. They're called NATO stay behind forces, and like they are. There's a whole bureaucracy going on, which means that actually the countries which they're located in, they don't have full control over these military units there, and they can't command fully over them. And like as a good example would be Turkey, where you have like so many generals being actually before like the whole thing happened, the whole overthrow. The whole coup was orchestrated by generals that were NATO stay behind Operation Gladio forces.
Right.
It's a verifiable fact. You can like look it up. Like most of the regiments that wanted to topple Erdogan in 2000.
It's very similar in context to the Crimean crisis that happened there. And what a lot of people don't realize, and actually when I first got onto YouTube, my very first video was about the Canadian and American involvement with basically putting Nazis in control of the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Oleg Tyanibok, the guy from the right sector. I mean, in any other European country, he would probably have been arrested for hate speech in Britain for sure. But I mean, in Ukraine, he's like pretty much a neo-fascist and like as far right as they come, and like that's the people who they bring into power in eastern Ukraine, while they tell us how we need to fear the far right in like Europe. So it doesn't matter if it's like left or right for George Soros, for example. He gives money to all people from all sides of the political spectrum, from all kinds of ideologies, and like it's a perfect example because in Ukraine you had like the Zionists and like you had them represented by their puppets. Yatsenyuk.
But what better? Actually, what better puppet government to put in the Nazis? Because if shit goes sideways, that's who you fucking blame. Like it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh,
And
they're Nazis. Who knew? Oh, crap. Like, oh, yeah, well, and
yeah,
the weird thing is that the entire world was against it. The entire world was against them doing this, and by them I mean us. I mean America and Canada, and yet.
mm,
NATO went and put in a puppet government made up of neo-Nazi fucking sympathizers and actual World War II veterans that and they're like, oh yeah, oh nothing's gonna happen.
and like they were saying that this was promoting democracy and all that, but like it was weird because like you had Yatsenyuk, who was of Jewish ancestry, and like I guess you could call him a Zionist, and like he was their guy, and then you had on the other side you had the far right Nazis, and they are both working together now in Ukraine. So it's like it's pretty weird. I mean, it's a weird combination.
Yeah.
And I mean, I mean, if you remember, there was the famous Victoria Nuland phone call where they basically discussed who they were going to put into power, and like they discussed Yanibok, Yatsenyuk, and Klitschko in
Right.
specific, and she said to like fuck the EU because they don't get to decide what we do because we are, I guess, number one, I guess, and yeah. It was pretty fucked up. I mean,
And right after that, Yanukovych just went, "Oh fuck this, I'm out." He just,
Yeah.
he just went, "Oh, I'm out. Peace."
Peace. Oh, it's incredible. I mean, yeah, and then they bring up the whole division on like the Russians. I mean,
Well, then
yeah,
we,
the
th-
Russians, you
th-
can feel
then
them.
then we got 2 years of we got tanks with Russian insignias and this and that, but they could be Ukraine, they could be rebels, but we're not too sure. A plane got shot down. Okay, yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like,
I know.
and people are like, oh my God, like they're glued to their TV sets. Oh my God, what's going to happen now? Nothing. Absolutely
Nothing,
fuck all. Nothing happened. Until fast forward 2 years later, 3 years later, now we got Syria. Shit got serious.
Yeah, pretty much. And like, man, it was crazy. But I mean, it's a frozen conflict right now in Ukraine because like, it's like they can't. What are they gonna do? Are they gonna fucking give them like I don't know the best modern NATO equipment? Are they gonna send in tons of mercenaries to fight the Russian proxies in Donetsk and Lugansk? Where are they gonna do? Like it's crazy. I mean,
I don't know.
how far is it going to go?
Let's ask the 83% of the Crimean parliament that voted Russia to take over again. Like,
I know, and like me being like I'm actually Slavic, I'm Serbian, so I know about like Slavic countries, and I know like the demographics of them, and like Crimea is like pretty much 75% Russian ethnically,
yeah.
and like most people there speak Russian. And like they acted as if like the Western media reacted as if like Russia went in and invaded like a part of Ukraine that was Ukrainian. But
Oh, they
like,
made it look like it was a total invasion.
yeah,
Hang on. You know what? I got a video. If you don't mind, I'd like to play the old video that I made. It's one of the first ones I ever made.
I know, I remember that one actually. It was pretty good. And, like I don't know. I'm not like a big Russia rah Putin's the best, but like I mean, when you just look at it rationally and like objectively, you have to say that like it's gone way too far. Like, what would have happened if like the Russians would have overthrown the Canadian government and put up some I don't know some some Russian agent in the Canadian government, and then they just would have like I don't know orchestrated a civil war in Canada.
I don't know. I don't know. I think the Queen would have got her skirt in a ruffle. I don't know.
everybody would have lost their minds, and like it's pretty much the same because Ukraine, Russia, they share such a long common history, and like it has been historically their sphere of influence,
Well,
and their
my personal opinion on Canada is, and I'm sorry for anyone listening to this. If you're Canadian, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but in my personal opinion, we've been the worst informants on the planet. We're first and foremost a British colony. We're spying on the Americans. Guess what? We're also spying on the Russians. Our listening post on Sussex Road in bloody Quebec is pretty much where we pick up everything that anybody throws out. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there.
And you have Justin Trudeau as prime minister. I mean, that's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if anybody
But,
wants to look, if anybody wants to see a pussy,
yeah, just look up Justin Trudeau in the dictionary. I
yeah.
guess.
And
I mean,
if you like good Canadian beer and you pick up a kokanee, just remember that his big brother's sitting at the bottom of that lake. History
didn't
lesson.
know that.
Yeah, no,
Did not know that.
his brother died about a decade ago on a ski trip, and he's at the bottom of Kokanee Lake, which we have a beer that's made from
Oh,
Kokanee water.
yeah.
So basically,
Yeah,
every
I
time
guess.
you have a drink of Kokanee, you're drinking Justin Trudeau's brother, who probably had a lot more balls than Justin Trudeau.
Probably. Yeah, I mean it's Canada, I guess, like really is I mean, you like to pride yourselves a lot. I mean, you have a lot of things to be proud of. I mean, I guess you're living comfortably and but I mean, de facto, it has never become totally independent from Britain.
No, it
Like,
hasn't.
and
And
from America, the big brother of Canada, the big brother America, of course. And
it
like,
hasn't. You know, I went out on Canada Day. I shot a video. It's on my YouTube channel, and I shot a video. I went around and I asked people questions on the street on Canada Day, and people didn't even know when or what year that we started calling it Canada Day.
yeah, I can imagine that. I couldn't tell that, but my guess would be like 19, I don't know,
It was like
80.
87, 86, 87. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
I had to look it up before I fucking started asking people. But Jesus crying out loud, I wanted to make sure I knew before I asked people the question. And I was like, holy crap, nobody knew. It was called Dominion Day before that. That was the name of it. Our Canada Day was called Dominion Day. Does that not give you like shivers? I mean,
And
do-
like as long as you have the queen who could still technically decide over politics in your country if he just felt like it tomorrow, she could do that. I mean, you're technically not totally independent.
True story.
Like,
And even though they granted us autonomy, which was the big deal, British Parliament could veto pretty much any decision that we make as a nation.
I don't know if Canada decided tomorrow that, I don't know, we have war with Iran, let's say, and Canada decides for some reason they don't want to go in. Like, I mean, the likelihood of that is very unlikely. But,
It could be vetoed. It could be vetoed.
It could be vetoed. So,
It could be
That's
vetoed.
so-
If Britain decided to go in, they could pull us in with them because they could veto any decision our parliament makes.
that's so messed up. And like, oh well, like, I have been like another example that I want to bring up is a country that has recently given up all of its autonomy and freedoms. I'm talking about Montenegro. It's a little country in the Balkans which became independent in 2006
Right?
after splitting off from Serbia and Montenegro, and like they recently joined NATO in 2017, and they now have to like I don't know, put up 2% of their GDP for the military spending. This new recent thing that has been pushed by NATO, and like they barely have enough to eat. So and like they don't have any wars. They have an army with about 1,000 people. Like, what's the matter with you? Why are you in NATO in the first place? There's nobody that is going to attack you. They made up a story about Russian meddling and an alleged assassination attempt on their president, Milo Djukanovic, in 2016. A Russian assassination attempt on him. So,
oh gosh.
but still, like, they didn't go on to a referendum, of course, because 80%, 85% of the people would have been against it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like whoever you talk to there, they detest NATO and they detest this alliance. They detest this imperialism. I mean, that's what it is essentially. I mean, as soon as you go kill people who are in Afghanistan, who are living in huts and like have like
most people, generally speaking, most people have an idea of what's right from what's wrong, and you know. Let's spin backwards. Let's go back to Britain becoming part of the EU. They had a referendum about that. Nobody wanted to be part of the EU nation. Nobody did.
Yeah, most of the people did not. So
they did it anyway. They did it anyway. And then fast forward to Brexit. It's like, big surprise. Guess what? Nobody gives a fuck.
Nobody cares. They're going to remain in the EU indefinitely. I mean,
and Brexit again was just another division tactic. Like, oh, are you part of us or you're not part of us? Well, part of what? We weren't part of you to begin with. We didn't give a shit then. We probably don't give a shit now. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
It's just so ridiculous.
It's just another division tactic. Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, you see it with NATO or against NATO in Montenegro, but I mean, largely it's a uniting tactic there because actually. When you hear people on the media talk for NATO, and remember, Montenegro was bombed as recently as 1999 by NATO, and people just flip to the other side. So it's actually a uniting tactic if somebody in the Montenegrin media talks about like NATO being positive. It's gonna unite people.
All it takes is a few bombs, a couple missiles, and some ground troops. We'll get the people together. We'll get them bonded. Let's have a bonding moment.
Bonding moment. Yeah, I mean, as soon as somebody bombs you, you're gonna unite pretty quickly. That's true, actually.
Yeah. I'm gonna play this old video. It's called "Russia and the Crimean Crisis." Put simple.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Fun with learning.
Yeah.
Hey, people of the planet Earth. This is Robert Morris for Save Humanity. I got a little history lesson for all of you. This is in regards to the last two videos I've done regarding the neo-Nazi support by our lovely countries of Canada and U.S. We've installed a proxy government in the Ukraine made up of neo-Nazis. Yes. And anyway, listen, instead of the bite-sized morsels of bullshit that CNN, NBC, and Al Jazeera and all these other awesome utensils of news like to, and by utensils I mean tools, these damn tools that feed you crap all the time. I'm just giving you a top-down view of the events that took place. I'm not really trying to arrive to any conclusions. I might throw in a couple of my own personal predictions, but whatever. Take it for what it is. Come to your own conclusions. Read, do some research, look around. Don't just go to CBS or NBC or the Daily Post or whatever the hell it is. Go all over the place. Read everything you can find, because this information is all out there. I've just kind of put together a little bit of a timeline. It is broken up. It does jump around back and forth a bit, so just bear with me, guys. I'm going to go to November 2013, where President Viktor Yanukovych of Ukraine, he announces that Ukraine is withdrawing its plans to sign the European Union's Association Agreement. And according to Wikipedia, it states that he was pursuing a loan bailout with Russia and closer ties with them. Well, as a result, some Western-backed organizations made up of wartime and post-war Nazi collaborators, a group called OUN-B, the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, had a plan to destabilize and overthrow Prime Minister Mykola Azarov, as well as overthrowing the democratically elected President Yanukovych. All right, well, February 2014, only a few months later, NATO, led by the EU, decided to back this regime change coup in the Ukraine with these groups. Now, about a week after accusing, this is in February, a week after accusing the Western governments for backing neo-Nazi terrorist organizations to put Ukraine under EU control, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov had a rather heated exchange with NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen. If I said that right, great. If not, well, with accusations of aggressive confrontational rhetoric. Lavrov knew it then and responded by stating this was the European Union's attempt to secure nuclear first strike status. Well, couldn't be more right, because that's exactly what's happened in June or July. So, well, let's back up a few years. We're going to go back to 1997, a little bit of history here. In 97, there's a treaty of friendship, cooperation, and partnership, where a division of the Black Sea Fleet in Crimea was agreed and signed upon. Russia would get 80% of the fleet and a 20-year lease on the facilities within the Crimean port facilities in Sevastopol. A year later, the new Ukrainian constitution changed the name of Crimea to the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. However, Ukrainian parliament retained the right to veto any legislation passed by the Crimean parliament. So a little bit of a wrap around the throat there, if you know what I mean. So go forward to 2001. Okay, just so you guys get an idea of the Crimean population here. There was a census, and it showed that Crimea was made up of 58.5% ethnic Russian, 24.4% ethnic Ukraine, and 12.1% Crimean Tatars. Okay, so just to give you an idea of who's who in Crimea. 5 years later, the main population showed disdain in an anti-NATO protest against NATO Marines in a joint drill between Ukraine and NATO, which was dubbed Sea Breeze 2006. It sounds so peaceful. Things started to go downhill from there. In 2008, the EU Eastern Partnership, which was started by Carl Bildt and Radek Sikorski, foreign ministers of Sweden and Poland, and this was after the heated events between Russia and Georgia in South Ossetia, or Ossetia. I guess that's, I'm not sure how to say that. This partnership, though, was aimed at 6 former republics in the Soviet Union: Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, Belarus, Moldova, and, you guessed it, Ukraine. The main objective was Ukraine. And even though none of these countries would have full EU membership, instead they would have an EU association agreement, the very same agreement that in November 2013, Viktor Yanukovych announced he was withdrawing from signing. So, this association agreement that he decided to withdraw from would not only dismantle Russia's trade agreement with Ukraine, but also end the lease in Crimea's Black Sea due to convergence and integration with the EU's defense system and NATO's forward basing on Russia's border. I mean, that shit would make anybody nervous, and whether Yanukovych was pro or against Russia, doesn't matter. The fact is that people are placing their pieces on the board. If you understand what I'm trying to say, we've all played Risk, I think, most of us. Anyway, later in 2009, Ukraine Security Service started criminal proceedings against the pro-Russian association, the People's Front, Sevastopol, Crimea, Russia. That was the name of it. But a year later, and without resolution regarding the EU association agreement, the Ukrainian parliament approved the extension of the Sevastopol lease to 2042. So now back to February 26, 2014. The Ukrainian president, Viktor Yanukovych, he's ousted from office, who fled the capital of Kiev and apparently was granted Russian citizenship.
There goes.
Now, in Crimea, soon after that, while the mainstream media would have you believe that a hostile takeover was taking place, they moved apparent paramilitary forces and equipment to Crimean soil. Guess what? A parliamentary vote of 83% to join Russia was made, thereby protecting Russian use of Crimea's port facilities, and by the 18th, Crimea became part of the Russian Federation, which was ratified by the Federal Assembly in Russia by March 21st. Now, within a week of that taking place, the UN General Assembly passed the non-binding resolution 68-262, declaring that the Crimean referendum was invalid, the annexing of Crimea was illegal, and by the 15th, the Ukrainian parliament, under new leadership, declared Crimea as an occupied territory. Now, you can understand, I'm sure, just by playing games, strategy games, that what's happening here is a big power play. It's crazy. This is all this is. It's a power play. Russia's trying to keep its foothold and is trying to protect itself. EU and NATO are trying to move in to take over more space, to control and seize power. I don't like either of them. I think they're both dicks. But guess what? For this video, that's enough history. I'm going to follow up with another video that picks up from here and says more. We're going to get into Russia's arming of the Arctic Circle and some of their friends and see what they're doing. Because if you think that these are isolated events, you're wrong. These are all connected to everything else. And I'm talking about China, North Korea, Iran, Israel. These are all related events, and they're all connected, guys. I'm going to show that to you. But anyway, thank you for listening. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and don't get bombed.
Yeah, great video. I remember that one specifically.
Yeah, that was a joy to make, that one. To be fair,
yeah,
that was a real joy to make. I mean, I learned a few things while I did my research for it. To be fair, I mean, I was completely beside myself, and I thought it would go in one direction, and it went into an entirely different direction. And suddenly I found myself rooting for Putin.
Rooting for Putin.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
because
because like, okay, let's get off the premise that every single leader is a good guy. Let's just pretend, for sake of argument, that they're all dickheads. They're all killers. they're all shisty business people. They got into a position of power because of the kind of person that they are. I mean, if you look at the pictures of Putin and Obama shaking hands, you know full well that one of them killed people, the other one just robbed people. You know, there's a contrasting difference in like, one's ex-KGB, the other one is just, well, ex-Oxford, you know what I mean? Like, Ivy League. But,
I don't know, ex-Hawaii / Indonesia / I don't know.
Yeah.
Still a mystery.
It still is kind of up there in the clouds, isn't it? But point being, though, is that you can tell just by the look in the eyes of the folks in question. It's like, fuck. Yeah, one of them is a stone cold killer. The other one is not. And I'm sorry to say this. This might sound a little bit absurd, but as far as leadership of a nation of millions is concerned, I'll put my heart into the stone cold killer, because I know that guy is going to be able to make decisions that the other one can't.
Yeah, and I think you saw that on the actions of the two leaders. I mean, basically, I mean, I don't know. I've seen Russia in the 1990s, and it was in an abysmal situation. Like, if you saw the birth rates were dropping so dramatically, they lost from a population of 147 million to 143 million. And only with Putin, it has kind of stagnated, and the trend is of like losing people because of how bad the economy is.
Yeah.
Like, people are not reproducing. We're not reproducing, and people were dying from alcoholism at very young ages, even more than before. Like, even and like people were left without anything pretty much after the collapse of the Soviet Union, while some oligarchs got pretty rich pretty quickly. And if you were lucky, I guess then it was a great time to live there. But like from what Russia was in the 1990s to what it is today is like a totally different story. And like you can see it, like he handled the Chechenian war at first with like like he was, of course he's ruthless, and like he doesn't shy away from like even committing his own false flags, as some speculate, with the bombings of the two buildings in Moscow.
Right.
But like he eradicated those radical Islamic terrorists in Chechnya that wanted like to break off that whole part of the Caucasus from Russia.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
like he's a stone cold killer. Yeah.
well, no, you bring up a great point, and I mean, as far as Putin's concerned, I mean, like I don't know him much better than the next guy does here in Canada. I mean, we only get what news that we get, you know, from basically all the different channels, which is basically RT, CNN, then we got the CBC, we got the BBC, we got these other outlets, and then we also got these reality analysts like yourself and myself and others in our ilk. I mean, like we're left with very little to go on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, but at the end of the day, the funny bit is that Putin at the end of the day is no different in terms of stature than somebody like Trump. Like in terms of glorification, in terms of how he's perceived by the people, he's absolutely no different. I mean, one could argue if Clinton got into power, I mean, she's a ruthless fucking gangster bitch.
Yeah, killer.
She's a
I mean, yeah,
absolutely.
She does pay other people to for for sure. I mean, yeah, it's just a coincidence that like Seth Rich got killed by some random dude, and like nothing was stolen from him, and like
with Seth Rich.
Yeah. I mean, there's many other examples. Vince Foster is another great one. I mean, many examples come to mind, and like you go to Snopes.com and like you look at the things, and then they just say debunked, or like they just say, oh, it's just a conspiracy theory. Yo, don't look into that. Like it's just I don't know. People keep up showing up dead, and like all of them had some, got into the bad. Like they weren't friends anymore with the Clintons. They used to be, but then something happened, and they end up dead, pretty much.
Well, you know what's funny is I think one of the really, 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 really bad things that happened to the Clintons is the whole thing that happened with the Albanian country.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and then bombing Serbia back into the fucking Stone Age didn't help matters much with their internal politics. That was kind of a shit move. I mean, I was going to school. I was in school going for C++ programming, and I went to school with a guy who was Serbian, and his older brother actually went back to Serbia to fight the U.S. fucking warplanes.
Yeah, I know.
And it was a bit fucked up.
Actually, but I always need. I know it's like it's one of the darkest chapters of like.
You're breaking up there, bud.
In history of Serbia, like actually. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now, bud.
Better? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, it was that was horrible, and like they dropped depleted uranium.
You know, I told people a long time ago.
Actually, I still suffer from the.
I told people about what tactical nukes were, and they're like, "Oh, you're talking science fiction. You're talking bullshit. You're talking crap." Like, no, tactical nukes are using depleted uranium and literally using them to irradiate an area. And they're like, oh, no, you're just talking shit. No, they were doing this as far back as the early 90s.
Yep, exactly.
It's ridiculous what
It's
people... It's ridiculous what people won't believe. You know, they'll believe that there's fucking aliens. They'll believe that there's goddamn fucking body snatchers, fucking anything under the sun, but they won't believe fucking common sense. And it's that if somebody has an armament at their disposal to use and a black ops budget in order to carry out that function, like, what, you don't think they're gonna fucking do it? It's ridiculous. Absolutely, it's preposterous. Like, to think that they won't. You still with me? Well, it looks like we lost FYGP. We're gonna try and get it back. Oh. Let's see, we got it back. Yeah, we got it back. Oh,
sorry.
No worries, mate.
What happened?
I don't know.
The stream. Oh, is the stream still up?
Yeah, the stream's still going.
Oh, good. Yeah. So my internet, I guess, went down for a second there.
Yeah, I just lost you. That was all.
Yeah, that happened. So I was just kind of talking about how like they were again like supporting both sides of the factions in Yugoslavia. They on one side they were supporting the Croats and Franjo Tudjman, who also had fascist tendencies, like the guys you see in Ukraine right now. And on the other side, they were supporting Serbian nationalists like Slobodan Milosevic and like his people at first. And then when like they saw that they could probably use the Croats, Albanians, and Bosniaks better to achieve their goals, then they decided to bomb Serbia and declare war on Serbia. So it was like, again, like I don't know. It's again like funding both sides of the issue and divide and conquer. And like for so many years, people in that country of 24 million people with like 7 different regions, country, like states, so to say, as you have in the United States, they lived together peacefully, and like for large part there was no like hatred. But then all of a sudden, before the war came, everybody on all sides started, brewing up the hatred and tension for the other side, and like that, it was exploited by the Clintons, I guess, to the fullest, and then they committed war crimes. Yeah. So that's how it happened pretty much, and like it's such a pity because who knows if maybe we wouldn't have had foreign intelligence services meddling in the internal affairs of Yugoslavia and bringing people who are bad for the unity and for the nation, for the well-being of the nation into power, then we possibly wouldn't have had the breakup of Yugoslavia.
Well, I mean, okay, if you go back far enough, I mean, you had to basically the entire. I mean, I was in the military for a few years, and that was during the war with Bosnia and Serbia and most of the Eastern Bloc nations were pretty much at war with each other, and the goddamn U.S. wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot fucking pole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for a long time they did not, but the Germans they were pretty much.
Oh, they were right there at your doorstep, weren't they?
The Germans, yeah, exactly.
The Germans were there, but the Americans wanted nothing to do with it. And the Canadians, Canadians were just there with the blue hats. They were just there with the blue hats to make it look like they were doing something good for the United Nations and what have you. It was absolute, complete fucking bullshit, all of it. Not the war that you guys had. I mean, that actually had some merit, but I mean the stance that the United Nations, Canada, the U.S., I mean,
And NATO.
and NATO in general they were still
Yeah.
trying to get their foot in edgewise with the EU, and
Uh,
they didn't have anything created. I mean, Christ, the EU still didn't even buy Britain in yet. I mean, if you want to, but
yeah, exactly.
but I
And like
digress.
you see it today, today Croatia and Slovenia are in the EU. Many other countries in the region have also wanted to become members, and it's like the perfect tactic. Like keep them divided amongst each other into small little countries. They couldn't have had Yugoslavia as a whole country in the EU because then they would have had too much say. Like this, they are always at odds with each other, and some countries are in the EU, others are not. Other countries are, looking towards Russia. The other ones are looking towards London and Washington. Like, it's always going to keep those countries at odds. And it's like, again, another divide and conquer.
Didn't they break up? Didn't they break up the border to like Bosnia and Sarajevo or something?
The problem with Bosnia is that the borders of it were artificially created by the communists after World War II. So what you had is like 37% of the population being Serbian, 17% being Croat, and the rest being Bosnian.
Right.
So had like by Bosnian I mean Muslim, because essentially it's all of the people have very similar ancestry, very similar like genetics and all of that. So it really comes down to the religion, I guess, which you use to define those people, and like that's so stupid. I don't know. I think would have been better to like put those differences aside, as it is all of the time actually. And these things are being used to divide people, and that's how it all started. I mean, with propaganda from all sides, and that's how the Yugoslav war started.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. The bizarre thing about this, again, is the perception. The perception that people take from this, outside looking in. I mean, at the time, I was lucky enough to have a friend of mine who was Serbian, who had his ear to the ground. I mean, his home country contacted his brother to ask him to come join the fight. And this is like 1997, 1998, I believe. And it might have even been 99. I think it was 98. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. It was pretty much right when it was happening, when Clinton was basically bombing Serbia back into the Stone Age. And, they were shooting down stealth fighter jets, the whole bit. I mean, there was a whole grandiose, it was big, man. And a lot of people just don't even realize what was actually happening at the time. And
at the time, it was like myself being a Serb. I followed it closely, and like my family there, and they actually went to Bulgaria. Like when the bombing was going on, they escaped as soon as like they saw that NATO is gonna bomb, like it's gonna intervene and bomb Belgrade actually, and. Like it's crazy what happened. I mean, the first stealth bomber in history was shot down by a antiquated Soviet-made surface-to-air missile of the Yugoslav army.
Yeah,
the Serbian army.
And they shot down a stealth X-11 fighter.
Yeah, 117A stealth fighter, the black one, the newest one back then.
A Delta wing. It was. I think it was X-11. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I did the video on that.
Shit, I mean,
I don't know how he did that. I have no idea. I mean,
hey, I'd like to welcome Kons Piracy.
Hey, what's going on? Just want to say hi.
Hey, what's up, what's up, Conspiracy? Never talked to you, but nice to see you coming on here, and looking forward to discussing a lot of topics.
FYGP, you probably know me as Fear, Porn, Propaganda.
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like your second channel, because YouTube keeps on shutting down things and censoring everything.
No, actually, I just made a second channel like long ago when I was doing Fear, Porn, Propaganda to do like research. So this is like my channel, my research channel. and then I put
That's
lists
good.
on it and stuff. And then Pure Porn Propaganda was more like my me and my friend's podcast that we kind of, it was like our discussion podcast, and then we started interluding people into it.
It's okay. I still call you Steve.
Yeah. That's my name for Rob.
I just call you Steve. It's a blanket statement.
So,
Anyway, I'm still at work, so I'm gonna be like coming in momentarily. I'll be listening in. But if you have any questions for me, just let me know, and then I'll pop in and say hi. Or answer them and whatever. But yeah, you guys go ahead and talk, and then I'm just like chilling here on the side.
Awesome. Thanks,
yeah,
man.
sounds good. And join us when you're done with work. Join us in the discussion.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, for those of you just tuning in, if you're just coming in now, we're talking about division tactics. However, we've been kind of getting into the politics of kind of world domination, I guess you could say, over the last, good 6 to 10 years, eh?
Yep. Yeah. And it's pretty obvious that this is happening because people such as Wesley Clark, I don't know if you remember on Democracy Now!, he once said that they're going to take out these 7 countries, and the last one would be Iran. And all of these 7 countries he put on that list were pretty much annihilated, put back into the Stone Age, bombed back into the Stone Age, as we said correctly, because
right.
I mean, we look at Yemen right now. Nobody's talking about what's going on there. Saudi Arabia is using I don't know, tactical nukes on them, and all kinds of shit has been coming out. I've been watching those leaked videos from that war, and it's truly horrifying. It's like, how far are these psychopaths? I don't know, Soros, who's pulling the strings in the back?
It really is. It really is.
To go.
I mean, if somebody isn't pulling the strings, then somebody else out there gets uptight. Suddenly it's like, what's going on? I mean, if they're not infused with sports or some form of politics or some form of something to be agitated about, then they just get agitated for no reason. And it's a sickness. It's a sickness that is created here in society, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, they get agitated about, I don't know, people, the whole, tie-up with the NFL, people not standing up for the anthem, and this whole, I don't know, we are oppressed, and this and that, and the whole left-right paradigm.
Well,
and yeah, I mean,
what other paradigm can you have other than left-right? I mean, if you go and ask somebody, turn to the right, I mean, chances are
I would define myself as
50% of the time, if someone's driving and you say turn right, 50% of the time they might actually turn right. They might turn left. I mean,
yeah.
They just it's like no.
It's absurd. I mean, yeah, I agree. And I would describe myself as an anarcho-capitalist, and I don't know that I would put that on because I'm for individual liberty to the maximum. So, I mean, you could put it on both sides of the spectrum. You could put that into libertarianism or or something like that, you know. So I guess it's a necessary kind of meter for where you're at. But I don't know. It's people define themselves too much on their preconceived notions and the things they hear in the media, because obviously most people are just casual listeners and pick up stuff, and then they regurgitate it. And as you said at the beginning of the podcast, it's really you talk to your colleagues at work and around the water cooler about this stuff, and
I think you said it all right there with preconceived notions. And here's the thing about preconceived notions. Things aren't preconceived unless they're fed to you. They're preconceived. That means that they were already conceived before you got the notion. So these preconceived notions came at you from a distance, from afar. And when I say you, I don't mean you, FYGP. I mean to some of our listeners out there. I mean, you get a preconceived notion about something. It's because you hadn't actually thought about it yourself. You hadn't come to a conclusion without outside influence. You know, I mean, it's and this is. I mean, I met somebody when I was living in Mexico. We had somebody stay with us, and she was an American girl, and completely and totally like fucking Clinton fan, and literally had like a physical response to any Trump talk. Like, I'm serious. Like, would get like physically ill if you said, "Oh, anything about Trump winning." Oh, and it was just bizarre. It was just bizarre to see her go on. Like, she's like she would like literally go from standing up to sitting down. Oh my God, I couldn't imagine if Trump won. I have to sit down. I'm like, are you fucking for real? Like, what's your deal? Like, it's like, oh no, we can't talk about this any longer. No, we can't talk about this. No. It's Clinton all the way. No, Clinton has to win.
That made me laugh.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, and like I would regard these people as like victims of it, because like they haven't come like to the right. I don't know. I wouldn't say like they haven't looked into it themselves, and they haven't like seen what is actually going on. And like, it's maybe arrogant to think that I know more, because I mean, a lot of our work is just speculation, and we don't really know those things that are going on. But I mean, looking at all sources, looking at all angles, looking at possibly the game being rigged, and like that's my first thing I go to, because politics is so corrupt. I mean, it's incredible if you're not like willing to.
But it's funny because people will go and say all the time that the worst people in the world are fucking lawyers, but as soon as they screw up somebody, or as soon as somebody screws up in their life, the first person they go to is what? A fucking lawyer. And it's the same thing with politics. It's like, oh, all politicians are corrupt, but I'm going to vote for this guy. Shut your fucking mouth. Like, seriously, you piece of fucking garbage. You piece of human fucking refuse. You're bullshitting through your teeth. You're dumb, and you're not actually talking like any sense at all. You can't say one thing and do another, and then not have any culpability. You know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. But Jesus, it's just, I just find it striking. It's like, now you're gonna have a polarized opinion of who is the right politician. Give it a rest. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, it's like. Oh gosh, I mean, I get this all the time for people. Like, it's like, oh, who's better, Trump or Clinton? Trump or Clinton? And I wish I had like a cricket soundtrack to play.
Yeah.
Because like I'd be like,
is it Bush or Gore? Is it Trump or Clinton? Is it like Obama or McCain, or is it like? You
know what?
Yeah.
I would, in a parallel universe, Bernie Sanders won. Okay.
I would say it's two sides of the same coin.
But hang on, in the parallel universe where Bernie Sanders won, I guess, I mean, I'm pretty certain it would be exactly the same as it is now.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it's all controlled. It's all part of the ritual.
Without a difference. I mean, maybe Trump is just more fun because he has a Twitter account. But shit, I mean, it would have been exactly the same.
Yeah. More fun, definitely, and like you see him like sometimes actually say some things that are right, like CNN is fake news. Yeah, for sure. Like, we need to have better relations with Russia. Or like some obvious truths. Like, sometimes I guess like that's good to hear. But and then like I mean it's the same. Like whoever wins, it's the fucking same. They're all puppets and like all being blackmailed by the intelligence services, by the CIA, by like all of them. It's like they have everything on anybody, and it's a perfect blackmailing mechanism. So, like the NSA, why do they collect all of the data? Well, as soon as somebody would step up, they know everything, and they know all of your skeletons in the closet. And to be a politician, you have to have a lot of skeletons in your closet because that's how they control you. And they always threaten you with that. They can win your entire career. And there's certainly some degree of psychopaths, especially on the higher levels. You look at them and you see, like Madeleine Albright, for example. You look at that woman and you cannot comprehend how evil she is, and you look at her words and you look at her actions, and it's how is this how is this being even human?
Yeah, that's a true story. Well, I mean that goes for the Queen of England as well. I mean, come on, let's be fair.
Same.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, she does her little wave. She does this. Hey, and then rapes fucking society.
Yeah.
As long as she waves though, with her little hat, and oh god. Yeah.
Oh, please play some George Carlin and what's the other guy? It's comes to mind. His name is Griffin. Eddie. Is it Eddie Griffin? I think he's a black comedian with also a good sketch, which we could watch later.
Oh, not sure.
He is also deceased, or no, I don't know if he's deceased by now.
I'd love to play some George Carlin though, if you're up for it.
Yeah, play George Carlin, and afterwards we can listen to Eddie Griffin, if that's his name. I think that's his name. Right. I'll look it up. Yeah.
You guys, subscribers, if you haven't heard of George Carlin, you've been living under a rock. But if you have, you're gonna love it.
Now, something else a lot of you are aware of. Those of you with illegal cable hookups will be aware of the fact that one of the things I like to do in my shows...
speaking of George Carlin, I just watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure again last night, and the Bogus Training.
Leaves you no shortage of things to complain about. So this next piece of material,
George Carlin plays
Rufus,
Rufus.
Ideas, is fairly simple. It's just a list of people who ought to be killed.
Oh, this is great.
Starting with these people who read self-help books. Why do so many people need help? Life is not that complicated. You get up, you go to work, you eat 3 meals, you take 1 good shit, and you go back to bed. What's the fucking mystery? And the part I really don't understand, if you're looking for self-help, why would you read a book written by somebody else?
For some reason, I can't hear it.
That's help. There's no such thing as self-help. If you did it yourself, you didn't need help. You did it yourself. Try to pay attention to the language we've all agreed on. And a similar mystery to me, motivation books, motivation seminars. Why would anyone need to be motivated by someone else? I say if you lack motivation, a seminar isn't going to help you. What you really need is to be smashed in the head 30 or 40 times with a golf club. That'll fucking motivate you. Or else it'll at least get you up and moving around the room. Locate your socks, shit like that. Get the day rolling. Motivation is bullshit. Yeah,
I'll just mute.
You could use a little less motivation. The people who are motivated are the ones who are causing all the trouble. Stock swindlers, serial killers, child molesters, Christian conservatives.
Hey, how come I can't hear it?
These people are highly motivated. Highly motivated. Anyway,
you're not on the watch
think
page.
Motivation is overrated. You show me some lazy prick who's lying.
Oh, okay. I have to be watching to do that. Okay. Well, that's kind of difficult because I'm on the phone. So, well, I just won't do that.
Hey. All right. Here's another pack of low-grade morons who ought to be locked into portable toilets and set on fire. These people with bumper stickers that say, "We are the proud parents of an honor student at the Franklin School." You know? Or the Midvale Academy, or whatever other innocent-sounding name has been assigned to the indoctrination center where their child has been sent to be stripped of his individuality and turned into an obedient, soul-dead, conformist member of the American consumer culture. Proud parents. What kind of empty people need to validate themselves through the achievements of their children? How'd you like that to live with a couple of these misfits? How's that science project coming along, Justin?
In the Skype
Fuck
chat.
you, Dad. You simple-minded prick. Mind your own business and pass the Cheerios. Here's a bumper sticker.
No worries, I got it.
See, we are the proud parents of a child whose self-esteem is sufficient that he doesn't need us promoting his minor scholastic achievements on the back of our car. That was pretty sick, good. Or, we are the proud parents of a child who has resisted his teacher's attempts to break his spirit and bend him to the will of his corporate masters. Just be nice a little for change, you know? Here's something realistic. We have a daughter in public school who hasn't been knocked up yet. We have a son in public school who hasn't shot any of his classmates yet.
Whoa.
But he does sell drugs to your honor student. Plus, he knocked up your daughter.
Too soon?
Then there are the people who aren't too proud of their children. We are the embarrassed parents of a cross-eyed little nitwit who at the age of 10 not only continues to wet the bed, but also shits on the school bus. Something like that on the back of the car might give the child a little more incentive, you know? Get him to try a little harder next semester. Here are some more parents who ought to be beaten with heavy clubs and left bleeding in the moonlight. These are the ones who carry their babies around in these backpacks or front packs or slings or whatever these devices are called that are apparently designed to leave the parents' hands free to sort through high-end merchandise and reach for their platinum credit cards. Because it's always these upscale, yuppie-looking Greenpeace, environmentally conscious assholes who have them on, you know? I say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Natural Fibers." I say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Natural Fibers. It's not camping equipment, it's a baby. Touch the little prick now and then. He'll thank you for it someday." These are the same people who sort their garbage, jog with their dogs, and listen to Steely Dan. You know? You just like to take them out deep into the forest and disembowel them with a wooden cooking spoon.
Oh, yeah.
Here are some more people who ought to be smashed across the face repeatedly with a piece of heavy mining equipment. These grown men who refer to their fathers as "my daddy." You know? Yeah. Gee, you hear a lot of this stupid shit in the South. These rebel assholes, you know? "My daddy, yeah, my daddy." Well, you know what my daddy used to say? My daddy used to say, blah, 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 blah. Oh, he did he? Well, wasn't that fucking enlightening? My daddy used to say, "Fuck your daddy." Fuck your daddy. In his wrinkled, rustic, rural, country asshole. Grow up, Billy Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, Frank. You're not 6 anymore. More like 9. Here's another unfortunate pack of mutants who ought to be penciled in for a sudden visit from the angel of death. These guys who can't tell you about a phone call they had without giving you this shit. The fucking pinky and the thumb. Like they attended mime college. Studied under Marcel Marceau. So I call her up, you know? And I'm talking to her. And she fucking hangs up on me. So I hang up on her. And she calls me back. I fucking hang up again. I say, "Hey, Bruno,
Hey, Rob,
thanks for the visual
is the
aid.
stream taken down by YouTube?
Understand the concept of
I'm still here.
I'm on the page and it says stream unavailable. What?
Yeah, it says the same thing here.
Yeah. Shit.
What? Oh,
I don't know what happened. Yeah. I don't know.
it says
Stream
it's still
suspended.
streaming. Oh, for
Oh,
crying.
Did they take us down?
Yes, I mean, it says stream suspended for policy violations, so I guess.
Yeah.
Ah,
Maybe for
copyright
saying
got
that live. There you go.
Oh,
copyrighted
what?
audio video. Ah.
Oh, shit. Of a dead man. No.
Hang on. Hang
Man.
on. That's awesome.
Like, if anybody should have the copyright, then, like,
That
I
means
don't know.
that means we did it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's, I don't know, we could start another stream, I guess. And
Hang
see where it goes.
Christ, we rebroadcasted an entire Netflix movie. We didn't get this.
Yeah, that's weird, right? Because like we literally watched all of what's that movie we watched? Hood? No, can't remember the name. Damn it.
Bushwick.
Thank you. Yeah, and we like reviewed the whole thing, and we didn't get taken down, so that's pretty crazy.
Hang on. I'm getting check marks now. Hang on. Your stream is no longer being blocked due to copyright issues. Hang on. It's going to come back.
Really?
It's going to come
okay.
back.
Well, there you go.
It's going to come back.
Oh, because you stopped, probably. Yeah.
Your stream is no longer being blocked. Oh, we're back on. Ha ha ha.
Oh, there you go.
Fuck YouTube.
Yeah.
Suck balls. Suck my fucking balls. Wow.
Oh, man.
This is a war that we've waged for many years. Anyway, so I played some George Carlin, but apparently YouTube doesn't like it. And I have nothing. I got nothing
copyright
to say about that. All I can say is YouTube can suck my balls. The podcast is still in effect. Sorry we got shut down there for a bit.
It happens way too often here. But actually, like, I don't know. I wanted to play a second clip, but right now I see this one is also like Comedy Central licensed audio and video, but even though it's from like the early 2000s. Okay. And it's actually a great clip of Eddie Griffin speaking the truth about like the war and like the wars that were going on, Iraq War, America, like and he says like, oh, we're not. I thought we were the United States of America, not the United Empire of Earth. It's pretty funny. I mean, people, if you haven't watched it, you have to go watch it. And it's pretty funny. He's like a great stand-up comedian. Yeah. Like Carlin in many ways. Yeah. And yeah, I like comedy. I like dealing with issues through comedy, and like there's so much truth in comedy, but unfortunately, I don't see like the same caliber of people doing comedy today.
It's important.
Like Carlin, and like you have to have like I don't know. You have to be honest. Like the late night comedians, we talked about this a little bit earlier before the show. So they're all pretty much like touting mainstream media talking points now, and like it's all just like you will rarely see a guy to stand up today and talking about the stuff Carlin talked about, for example.
Mm. Well, that would never make it. I mean, we did talk about this before the podcast started. Yeah, I mean, late night celebrities that are doing these shows now, they're very divisive. I mean, they're whether it's a personal agenda or whether like politically minded or whatever. they're still pushing a preference to the late night scumbags who are sitting there. I mean, myself included, drinking beer at night because there's nothing better to do, and you're just sitting there and you're just taking in all of these opinions. And when it's funny, you're going to stamp an emotional attachment to it, which makes it even more harmful, especially when it's not your own political opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
And like, I mean, and
I think that's the
like
main
another
problem
thing-
with Saturday Night Live, because everything in Saturday Night Live is making you laugh, but it's political.
yeah.
But like, I can't like not laugh at it, because like some things are so absurd that are happening on this world, and like it's funny, but like sometimes it's really tragic, and then I sometimes get agitated, like especially when it comes to all those wars and the people who have to die for some petrodollar, so to say. Like,
Yeah, but
Yeah,
but in
let's
your
be-
defense though, there's very little that can't not be turned into comedy. I mean, there's so many really horrible things to discuss or talk about or even bring to light. But I mean, if you could turn it into comedy, it becomes a little bit easier to accept and a little bit easier to process. Even though it's wrong, it's still easier to process mentally. And then you can take away from that and then go, okay, well, let's move on to become better and not be like what I just heard, because that was fucking horribly funny. You know what I mean? Like, you could take away from things like that. But I mean, that moves us forward now. I mean, we've gone on about the politics of other nations, takeovers, and basically, I guess you could say, polar opinions on those subjects. But
Yep.
let's go on about BLM. Let's go on about the feminist movement and all these George Soros funded fucking campaigns. What's your take on that?
Oh yeah. I mean, again, it's like pretty radical
By the numbers.
ideology, and like by the numbers, and they have a lot of funding, and as we see many times, like you have actual like NGOs who are supposed like advocates for humanitarianism and human rights, again exploiting the minds of people and putting them into these, I mean, groups that are nothing less than ridiculous, like Antifa, for example.
Antifa is a great example. Yeah. And you know what? Most of these groups, like Antifa and what have you, most of them are basically college students that are being propelled into this by their professors and teachers. And guess who's funding their curriculum?
Yeah, and who's giving the money to all the universities and like helping, you know, and it's a complete control, and like I don't know, with like the opinions and like the norms of like what is allowed to be said, and like pretty much the way I've seen it, like you can say anything against like straight white males that you want, but as soon as like you question the gender of somebody and maybe make a mistake on that, people get triggered, and like I don't know, it's like this culture that is not healthy, and it's like when you're offended, like you're the victim, and like some people are more victims than others based on notions like on, I don't know, race or religion or background or anything. Like I mean, you have groups such as I think Americans from like who have Indian heritage doing much better than like the majority of European Americans. And like, it doesn't exactly matter where you're from. It's what you make it in life, and that is what you decide. And of course, everybody faces some type of different obstacles, but you have to, like, you cannot judge people based on those things. And like,
Yeah. Well,
so I used to say
it's like a 25-year-old black person. Let's just to be PC about this, an African American that's 25 years old right now today, going and saying that he's living on the shoulders of his slave ancestors. Give it a fucking rest.
it's ridiculous.
Get over it.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's talk about Irish fucking slavery. How many Irish out there were slaves? Oh, guess what? Nobody can answer because they're dead. They're all dead
Yeah,
now.
it's like everybody was a slave one time.
Everybody was a fucking slave. I'm
That's
so
pretty much my history. I mean,
I'm sick of the fucking slave talk, for fuck's sakes. Like, give it a rest.
yeah.
You want a good job? If there just happens to be a cotton field, go pick cotton. And it's not a goddamn racist remark. Like, fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, like the Serbs, I mean, I could go on the oppression Olympics and say, oh, look at the Ottomans, what they did to us. The
Ottoman Empire. Oh, my God. In Bulgaria. Jesus Christ, that's even worse.
It's all about race baiting, in my opinion.
It's like ridiculous. This is the stuff from like, it's not going to affect you and your, like, the Civil War is not affecting you in your personal life anymore in the slightest bit. Like,
You
for
know,
example,
the worst thing to be right now in contemporary society, I'm not sure how it is over there in Europe, but the worst thing to be here in North America is to be a white heterosexual male. Hands down. It's the absolute worst thing you could possibly be, because it doesn't matter what you do. If you slip of the tongue or you fuck up, it's like all eyes are on you, and you fucked up because you're either racist or you're some or this, or it's just ridiculous. The worst thing to be is a white heterosexual male. And God damn it, I'll bring it back. Power to the white heterosexual males.
I mean, imagine, like, I don't know, if, like, the radical, I don't know, left would have their way. I mean, it would like be a matriarchy where males are nothing more than, like, I guess, cheap labor. Like, I don't know.
But I
don't know. Imagine a world if the radical feminists were in power. If, like, every politician had to be a woman, that would be horrible.
I've got a photo somewhere. I'm going to try and find it while we're talking here. But, okay, I went back to my hometown, and I had to, I didn't have a place to stay, so I crashed at a friend's place. And, well, she's a good chick, don't get me wrong, but I was snooping around and I found some baby books, and literally there was a book with the really thick cardboard covers that most baby books have, like, so that they can handle them. It's like an inch and a half thick, but there's only 8 pages because like each fucking page is like an eighth of an inch thick. Anyway, there's one of those, and it was called Feminist Baby.
What?
I'm not shitting you. I'm not shitting you. It was called Feminist Baby, and it was like a nighttime reading bit. I was like, what the hell kind of indoctrination is this? Oh yeah, I'm gonna totally find this one. I'm gonna find this now. Yeah.
But there's even like other examples I've seen, like if like putting gay couples into children's books, and like putting in transgenderism, like what if Brett is Brenda or something like that. I don't know these titles, but I've seen those covers as well, and it's like, man, in Russia they put out a law against criminal propagandization of like homosexuality and pedophilia to children, and like transgenderism to children.
There it is.
So,
I found it.
Like, in many ways, I understand that decision from Putin, because if you have children's books with this stuff, I mean, this is not good for like the health of like your child. It's gonna mess it up. I mean,
but the thing
I
is, though,
still believe in traditional family values.
everything
Maxim,
starts
like
everything starts
traditional
with the
families have
parenting.
to be strong. Everything. The parenting has to be, both parents have to be there for the children, and unfortunately, in today's society, this is not what we have in like most majority of families. Unfortunately, because the people are too busy making money and making it through the day basically, and like have their own issues, and like I don't know, it's like pretty fucked up.
So you're a
Strong
baby.
families.
Let's just say you're a baby. Your entire world is every single bit of input that you get from the adults around you, from anything that's around you, whether it's a car honking or somebody telling you not to touch that because it's poisonous or hot. You know what I mean? Like, your entire world is basically that surrounding that you have. So you're taking it all in. If you get somebody reading you some shit called feminist baby, don't you think that you're going to start taking in those values, even if you don't understand what they are? I mean, this goes up there with, I'm not being anti-Bible or anti-Catholic, but I'm just saying, even with like teachings of the Bible, teachings of the origins of the planet, teachings of anything, you're taking it all in as a baby for the first God knows how many years, and that's all you're going to take in because that's your entire world. Not like
exactly.
Not like you stepped out, not like you stepped out on your own to do your own thing. You're literally taking in and feeding in everything that is being broadcast to you. And I mean, you got shit like this. I pulled it up on a screen, and this is an actual book. Lauren Brant's Feminist Baby. What the fuck is that all about? Are you fucking kidding me? Absolutely damn ridiculous. I have no idea what kind of fucking bullshit this is. Don't care. Didn't read it. Snapped the shot of the goddamn cover before I left my friend's house. I was like, I can't believe that somebody would put this to fucking print. Because, like, going further, we're going to go down this fucking road with the whole gender issue in a bit. But, I mean, for crying out loud, do you think a baby is interested in whether or not he or she or it or the turtle is an actual fucking feminist? Do you think that's an actual issue? No. Like, do you think it's like, I'm hungry, I want to suck on a boobie? Like, that's the end all be all of a baby's like necessity.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it. If it's a girl, I'm gonna give it dolls to play with, and if it's a boy, I'm gonna give it cars and like
G.I. Joe or something.
Figures, G.I. Joes and whatever, like and like locomotives or whatever, this and that, like.
I'm not gonna prime the baby on feminist movements and what is and this is part of the division that we were on about from earlier, is that like these things are cast upon us. You have these SJW types that now are going on about feminism, but yet, you know what? There's actually more laws in place that protect women than there are that protect men. Period. Flat out. Like, it's like, oh, you're taking our rights away. You know what? Actually, no. We are the ones that actually have no fucking rights compared to what's been put in place for you over the last 30 fucking years.
Just look at all of the court settlements. Like, a woman who wants to get out of the divorce, or like the couple, she almost always gets out, like, all the alimony, the house, everything. It's like, how many times is it like the man loses everything?
It's retarded.
Yeah, I mean, just to bring up an example, like if you think there's like a two-tier justice system rigged against women or against this and that, and like it's like just ridiculous. And
you know what?
It's understandable. Oftentimes.
It's become a triple tier system against white heterosexual males. I mean, if you're a black gay male in a wheelchair, you got it made. Made in the shade, bud. You're made in the shade. Somebody will probably walk over and push your wheelchair around for you too.
Every time, and not that they shouldn't, but like, yeah, I mean, you have like this politicizing of these roles in society, and these like whatever race and like you are and whatever like background you come from, like it's gonna be immediately you're gonna be judged for it. And like, I'm a 6'4" bearded Slavic dude in Switzerland. I don't know. I don't know how I'm seen by people. I have no idea. Like, and
you know the funny bit. You know what? I could probably hazard a guess and say that they probably just don't give a fuck because they live in the mountains and they just don't have to. They don't want to deal with this bullshit, and most of us shouldn't have to either.
Yeah, actually, like in Europe, people. I haven't seen it come that far with, like maybe. In Germany, I've seen it. Yeah, in Germany, it's definitely like refugees welcome, bringing 2 million in 4 years or something. I mean, they don't know the exact numbers, but I mean, the estimates of the German government are about 1 million, right? So, like in Germany, the feminism and all of that general stuff, also like 64 different genders, and like what is actually the most ironic stuff about it is that they claim to bring people together by let's bring like I don't know, everybody like let's just abolish like the gender norms and raise our kids gender neutrally, which is something I have totally no fucking
I have no idea what the fuck that
I mean,
means.
I'm gonna this means that like kids are going to be raised by like they're not going to be called by he or her, or they're going to be called by some gender pronoun. They're going to be given like
hey you,
and they're going to be given like girls' books and dolls, and like they're going to be then left as like you can't like define him, and the parent is going to be then like I've seen some of that stuff like somewhere. I mean, I don't know if it's just the fringes of society, but I don't know. I've seen it so many times propagated on the mainstream media, and like this is how basically welcoming and open everybody should be, and
how many genders did you say? You said something like 50 something. How many genders?
Well, I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's the exact number is hard to fathom, but let's see, 47. I have no idea.
Hang on.
AK-47.
There's a great video. I'm gonna find it now. But it's just funny though that there's only 26 letters in our English alphabet. I said human alphabet. Yeah, there's only 26 letters in the English alphabet.
No.
And there's like more genders now than there are. The pedophiles are trying to get a goddamn fucking letter in there now. I
mean, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. And according to Facebook, it's like 56 different genders. According to alf.org, it's 63. Then here comes the one with 71, and then there's like, there's like 2 genders. There's you have an X and Y chromosome and XX chromosome, and you're either born male or female, and in some rare case you're a hermaphrodite in like 0.001% of the cases, which has both sexual organs, and that's it. Like that's it. Like you have 2 genders.
Okay, I got the perfect one to throw up here for us. This is brilliant. This is the German politician who basically mocks Parliament at the UN.
Wait, I haven't seen this one.
You haven't seen this? Okay.
No.
I'm gonna play
I
this.
have not. But I want to see it because most of the times when you see German politicians, it's like some, Angela Merkel speech about like, how for example, the thing that happened in Cologne, the mayor of Cologne actually said it was like, rape culture was to blame, and she didn't specifically mention that, like, the sexual assaults in Cologne of 2015 New Year were carried out by, migrants,
Wow.
mostly. And, like, she said that it was, like, toxic masculinity. That was to blame for
toxic masculinity.
like
we call that alpha, bitches.
no, I mean that was certainly like.
I'm sorry, it's just something beta males won't understand.
Yeah, dude, I mean, like, come on, like, Western males get shitted upon the actions that were done by, Middle Eastern guys.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, come on, like, seriously, it's like, and then I think that's really prevalent there, but I don't know, how is it in Canada? I mean, in Switzerland is not in the EU, and Switzerland is kind of like, they have, people here are not into that stuff. They are not, they're laughing at it.
Here,
friends,
it's a bit divided.
They're
here.
not into that.
A lot of people that I talk to pretend to give a shit. Most of them don't.
Yeah.
But the ones that do are very divided, and they're usually the younger crowd. The older ones are just like, I don't know what's going on with these fucking kids today. But the older ones, I mean, the younger ones, I mean, are just completely like, oh God, oh, I'm like, I'll say, let's go smoke a fag. That's not the preferred nomenclature. It's like, go fuck your hat, you piece of shit. I just, they just don't understand shit. But hang on, I'm going to play this. This is the 60 genders. This is the German MP addressing the UN, and it's about a decision. It's really great.
Und Herren, sehr geehrte Schwule, sehr geehrte Lesben, sehr geehrte Androgyne, sehr geehrte Bigender, sehr geehrte Frau zu Mann und sehr geehrte Mann zu Frau, sehr geehrte Gendervariable, sehr geehrte Genderqueer, sehr geehrte Intersexuelle, sehr geehrte Weder-noch-Geschlechter, sehr geehrte Geschlechtslose, sehr geehrte Nicht-Binäre, sehr geehrte Pangender und Pangeschlechtlichen, sehr geehrte Transmännliche und Transmänner, sehr geehrte Transweibliche und Transfrauen, sehr geehrte Transmenschen, sehr geehrte Trans mit Stern, sehr geehrte Transstern weiblich und Transstern Frauen, sehr geehrte Transstern männlich und Transstern Männer, sehr geehrte Transmenschen, sehr geehrte Transfeminine, sehr geehrte transsexuelle Personen, sehr geehrter Interstern weiblich und sehr geehrter Interstern männlich.
Abgeordneter, stand hier eine Zwischenfrage?
Ich bin ja noch nicht mit der Begrüßung fertig, Herr Präsident. Entschuldigung. Sehr geehrte Interstern Männer, sehr geehrte Interstern Frauen, sehr geehrte Interstern Menschen, sehr geehrte Intergender, sehr geehrte intergeschlechtlich, sehr geehrte Zweigeschlechtlichen und sehr geehrte Zwitter, sehr geehrte Hermaphroditen, sehr geehrte Two-Spirit drittes Geschlecht und sehr geehrtes viertes Geschlecht, sehr geehrte XY-Frauen, sehr geehrte Transvestiten, sehr geehrter Crossgender, sehr geehrtes Nullgeschlecht und natürlich auch ganz herzlich die sehr geehrten sonstigen Geschlechter. Sehr geehrter Unterstrich Nonnemacher, sehr geehrter Unterstrich Bader und sehr geehrter Unterstrich Mus. Die AfD-Fraktion lehnt ihren Antrag ab. Danke.
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Third gender.
Your proposal is rejected. Oh, that was brilliant. Yeah, I couldn't say it any more clear than that, to be fair.
Oh, that was great. I think it was somewhere in the German parliament thing.
The first time I saw that, I was like, what am I watching? Oh my God. oh, this is fucking funny. And it just didn't stop. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was actually a comedy skit or something. And he's like, "Oh wait, no, this is actually quite serious." And the Germans are very good at doing that. They're very good at like being very serious, but at the same time, they could tell the funniest joke with a straight face. And for that, I give them applause.
That was amazing.
I love the Germans.
Me too. I love everybody. Man, everybody has some great people. I do. I love it.
Hey, when I was in Munich, I giggled my ass off because the hotel that I was staying at was actually more of a motel, but I had to go out on foot and go down to the local shops and what have you, and I giggled my ass off like I was an 8-year-old. I mean, I was watching the names on the streets, and there's like, Wiener Munchin, Burger Munchin, Wiener Schnauzen. I mean, like, everything was like food centric, and it was all very funny to me. My inner 8-year-old was just giggling his ass off. I'm like, hey, everything sounds dirty and food related. It's kind of funny.
And probably beer related.
Well, yeah, the motel was. Oh, that's where I had my.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, oh Christ, oh, Weissenbier. Oh, yeah. Was Hogarden. I arrived in town actually at about 3:00 a.m. So the restaurant was closed, the bar was closed, but I got in there and I checked into the motel, and I was like, "Yeah, where can a guy get a drink?" He goes, "Oh well, you've got a bar fridge in your room, but what would you like?" I said, I would love a draft. I got to my room and he had 2 tall pints waiting for me in front of my room. So I have to say, that great place to stay.
I have actually never been. So
it was called the Parliament Motel in Munich. Great place, absolute fucking brilliant place.
Nice. So when I'm in Munich, I can go there.
Yeah. Find the Parliament Motel. Oh, a nice view. It's a small, tiny little place. They got a nice restaurant when it's open. Brilliant.
That's great. I love the food also. I mean, schnitzel. It's amazing.
So, I mean, we've covered a gamut.
Yeah, covered so much. Yeah.
Across several different issues regarding division tactics. What other bits would you suggest that we kind of go into?
Other things. I don't know. Just I think popular culture, just movies, series, media, whatever you have. Like I don't know. I've been watching House of Cards, like recently.
Oh, hey.
Like.
Rob, have you heard of Extinction?
No.
Extinction? No, I have not.
It's a new movie that dropped on Netflix, and it was really trippy because it was like the idea of there's like an invasion happening over these people, but then like there's a twist of who these people are, and it's like throughout the whole thing because it starts out all these things coming down from space, and then they are all shooting people and stuff, and I'm like, well, that doesn't seem like sophisticated weapon for a like an alien, right? So basically it seemed like military to me, but right. In the end, there's a twist. I don't want to ruin it for you, but it is essentially the military, but the people that they're attacking, that's the twist. And I want you to find out about that yourself.
Hologram invasion, hologram alien invasion coming by 2020.
Yeah. Alien invasion, false flag.
It totally felt like it's showing us the what FYGP was just talking about, Project Bluebeam.
Right.
And like playing it out in a sense, but with a twist, like in a sense, because like that's what I was thinking the whole time, and then at the end, like It's like threw me for a loop, and I was like, oh.
It's really funny because a week and a half ago, NASA, or actually, sorry, I should say the mainstream media came out and then said that NASA admitted that there's nothing out there. Nobody's out there. There's absolutely no contact with anything. We're the only thing in the universe. They literally went and did that. And then 2 days later, the Canadian media came out with a report that, we're receiving transmissions from this, that, the next thing. And then it's just bizarre because it's a complete, total flip-flop. Because
that's what it sounds like.
Because Canada is a hot spot for UFO activity. So if there's nothing out there and we're a hot spot for UFO activity, then it's going to get people on the fence again. So again, it's another division tactic.
Yeah, and I don't know. There could be a lot of stuff with, certainly with health and that. I don't know how deep the rabbit hole goes, and as far as I'm concerned, it's mostly like speculation, and like we cannot do anything else because this would be like top level, like deepest secrets of the government, right? So yeah, I mean, we can just speculate. It's just
all we have is some sort of document in 2006, and that's supposedly Project Bluebeam. And it's supposedly from NASA, so that's all we have. And we don't know if that's real.
Yeah, all we get is a bunch of white papers and a bunch of blue papers saying this, that, the next thing. And pretty much, the conspiracy guys are just going to go fucking have a heyday on that and say all sorts of shit, in their opinion, of course. And, here we are. The moon is a hologram.
It's flat, dude.
Space is fake. Planets don't exist, and the Earth is a magic snow globe.
Well, I think it actually is layers, and it's more like a disosphere. But yeah.
Okay.
That's how people who question things are like portrayed. Another division tactic.
I speculate that we're actually inside of the disosphere, and the whole idea behind outside of the disosphere is actually the fakeness of what we're portrayed as the media, and said, NASA and all that. So, like, they basically, if it was fake and they created it, that would be a good reason to do it, is if we were inside the disosphere.
Thing is, though, is that you can't simulate an outside reality of the cosmos, and utilize mathematics to prove that we're inside of a disosphere.
No, you're right, and that's why it just remains a theory.
But that's where it fails, and I see some of these other YouTubers out there, some of which used to be my co-host. No names, but holy crap. I mean, shit. I mean, seriously, people who don't actually step out beyond 3 blocks outside of their house believe in some of this shit.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta like see the sun for yourself. Watch it go down. Watch it go down somewhere, and not in the mountains, because that doesn't help you.
Or
You'll just see it go over the mountains.
Or just travel somewhere. Like, I mean, I was just in Mexico, and I mean, the moon is rotated about 90 degrees to its orientation from where I am now. And it's like, the moon has changed orientation because I moved my position on the Earth. Oh, that wouldn't happen on a flat Earth.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Or how come that, like, we see Australia sees it completely differently than, let's say, fucking Vancouver, Canada.
Totally.
Or like the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere inverted, right? So it's the moon is upside down, right? So
completely
makes sense, right? That proves the globe, right? And basically, it's like how many times
You know,
it's like
hang on. You know what else it proves? Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you know what else it proves?
Yeah.
Losers don't leave their basements.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean,
Just
go and travel, just go see. I mean, it's ridiculous.
You can't rely on videos to tell you stuff. You got to go see it for yourself in visual perception with your own eyes, kind of thing. Not a possible doctored video.
And you definitely can't rely on videos made by people who don't leave their own basements either.
Yeah, exactly.
And somehow,
and you kind of get an idea of if they do or not, considering like what they're doing or how they're doing it, and if they have any research to back it up, and if they leave any research for you to check out to like go further. That doesn't happen.
No.
With that stuff.
FYGP, go ahead. You're saying something.
Everything can be debunked easily. You just have to like actually look at the way the world is. Like you just have to observe things and the sky, and like you have to get into astronomy and this kind of stuff a little bit, and you will see that like it holds up. Like it's just ridiculous, and it's being used as a psyop. I'm 100% convinced about that.
Well, this
actually to ridicule people who have like opinions on, let's say, 9/11 being an inside job, which I certainly agree with. And
but this, it's a huge point. It's a huge point that you bring up because I mean, like again. In terms of division, the whole flat Earth argument is a total division piece because you get absolute fucking retards and non-knowledgeable people who don't understand math, especially people.
And they think they know things.
They think they know things because they watch the internet. And
they don't know anything.
And a lot of them live in like Saskatchewan or Manitoba, and it's all flat anyway. So, I mean, they have all the reason to think that the world is flat because they can't see anything for miles. I mean, they could probably see Ontario from their house. I mean, their dog runs away. They could watch it run away for 7 days. You know what I mean? Like, fuck. It's ridiculous. But, I mean, go
live next to in Portugal for 1 year or something like that. Go look at the ocean and go look at the ships that are actually disappearing beyond the horizon. And it's like not an if you can observe it. It's like gradually you will see it. And like if the Earth was flat, then the ship would be getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it's like microscopically small, and you need a giant telescope to look at it. But no, you don't see it because the ship is, too far away, and
It's really funny because Lake Ontario, which is right. I mean, I grew up in Hamilton, so I mean, I had Hamilton Harbor was pretty much at my doorstep. And it's funny because it's used a lot by the flat earthers to measure the distance across the lake and how much of the CN Tower is obscured. I mean, on some days you can see the entire CN Tower from Hamilton Harbor.
Yeah, sure.
And on other days you can see half of it. But I mean, of course, you got the bending of light and what have you, and oh yeah, hell forbid there's a goddamn curvature to the fucking Earth. I mean, shit, you're gonna piss off every goddamn flat earther if you tell them that. But
yeah, exactly, and like of course, it's the planet is millions of square kilometers, square miles, and then of course you will know.
Conspiracy.
A tiny 6 foot tall being. You're not going to see the curvature from your 6 foot point of view, right?
No.
So you weren't talking to me.
Where's the curvature?
Chances are you're not going to see the curvature at 30,000 feet in the air either.
Yeah, neither. Right.
Oh, exactly. I mean, because you have to be essentially high enough for the bigness or the hugeness of the so-called planet to be in full spectrum, and then you can see how big from the outside perspective is, and then you can probably see the actual curve. if you will, because you probably have to be outside the atmosphere to actually see it.
Because the Earth is just so goddamn
That's
big.
why you can't show it on the plane.
Yeah, it's that
But
simple.
that stuff is also fake by NASA. It's all fake by NASA. That stuff. So again, like you can't win with those people. You cannot whenever you bring up something.
You can't do science. You can't do. You have to use religion to talk to them, pretty much.
My holy book. Look, I'm not down on anyone who's religious.
It doesn't say in the Bible that the Earth is flat. Actually,
no.
It's the four corners. It's the four corners of the Earth where the angels stood. That's what they always use.
And the firmament.
Yeah, and the firmament. They always throw the firmament in. I don't even know where that comes from.
Taken as like north, south, west, and east.
Which
right?
book talks about the firmament? Isn't that apocryphal?
So somehow the firmament turned into a crystalline dome.
Yeah, but isn't that story from the apocryphal books? It's not even from the Bible. It's like from the parts that were taken out. Just like the Luciferian story. It's like they're always bringing that one up, but it's not in the Bible. So I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't know which Bible, though. There's so many different Bibles. There's so many different sky gods and so many magic wizards. I'm not sure which one to choose from.
I guess the main one that most people go by
is the King James one. The King James one.
And that one is put together in a certain way. And it was taken, and there was other apocryphal tales that were taken out of it. And a lot of those were like talking about the three gods, like the Enki. For instance, the Enki story is all an apocryphal story.
That one all
that Zechariah should talk about.
The original King James Bible also refers to God as they. He also says God created man in their own image. He actually refers to them in the plural. So I'm not even certain what the hell any of it means. I'm not knocking any of it. I'm not criticizing, but I'm just saying that it just leaves room to ask questions. And I think any red-blooded man or woman or turtle on this planet should be able to ask a question.
Yeah, until you can't. Ask questions until you can't.
True story.
Basically, I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, you cannot verify it, but I mean, it's a great read. It's filler. And like we have a lot of similar stories occurring from like prophets and like the ancient ages with like, and that basically some of the same stories being told by all different cultures, and essentially when you boil it down, there's many things that, like, for example, Jesus and Mithras were like the exact same people, basically. The Greek god Mithras and the Isle of Cyprus and Crete, right? Crete.
Or like Zeus and Kronos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, exactly. There's a lot of this that happens throughout mythology. But, you know, I mean, there's always a grain of truth in all mythology.
Yeah, definitely.
However it's interpreted is a different story, but it always relates to something that actually did happen. Whether or not we're interpreting it correctly or not, it yet remains to be seen. But again, these are the things that are utilized in division tactics, and I do believe that's you there, Steve. Get your input taken care of, because you're definitely feeding back into our stream.
Okay.
Thanks, mate. But yeah, I mean, and religion being the end-all be-all of division tactics. I mean, it was our basic world's first internet, to be fair. I mean, religion has been used to divide people from day one, from all different walks of life, depending on which sky wizard you believe in, which religion is right, which heaven are you going to go to, which hell are you going to go to, are you going to go to hell, are you going to go to heaven, are you Mormon, are you, Latter-day Saint, are you this, are you that, are you Protestant? Oh, well, I mean, gosh, there's just so many to choose from. Like, who's right?
Yeah.
Who's
Well,
wrong? It's the ultimate divisive platform at the end of the day.
it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's the ultimate one, and like I mean I can see why. I mean, you know, if you want to make people fight over
Yeah.
over
Well, okay.
stuff, I mean, you
Well, okay. There's, I guess there's
it's always getting it's always getting exploited by the politics. Like,
right.
if we had religion without politics and everybody
But
could actually just focus on their own beliefs without, you know, fighting the other ones, then it would have been much better and much more
it's also
peaceful,
determined by
like religion.
I think it's also determined by region as well. I mean, let's be fair. Your language is determined by where you grew up, and your language, your religion, your local beliefs are usually regionally allocated. But when you get a major push, like something like the Roman Catholics going out with their missionaries and their crusades, now you got a different push. You know what I mean? It no longer becomes regional, because then they come in there with their English tutors, their English teachers. They teach you the language, and then they teach you that, oh, well, you're going to burn in hell, but you won't burn in hell if you let Jesus into your life. You know what I mean? And then they sequester you out of your own local belief and what you've been taught, you know, all your life, and then give you something else to chomp on. I'm just saying that it's very, very similar.
Yeah.
It's similar to how mainstream news works.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, perfect example. Look at the Spanish in South America, what they did to the native population there, with converting them all and telling them, oh, I mean, now, like, South America is the most Catholic countries ever. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, a lot of countries are much more Catholic in South America than, let's say, France or, you know, or Spain, even, or Portugal.
Right.
It's yeah. I mean, church organized religion, not like the perversion of like the true belief system, and like, you know, the kind of like your personal opinions on the universe and where it came from. Like, this perversion has caused like so much harm, and like it's still being used as a tool for divide and conquer, as you say. And it's like, yeah, we should put aside our differences, but we shouldn't forget that there's people who are so indoctrinated. Like, look at the Saudis, Saudi Wahhabists, for example. Right. Look at them, right? Look at, I mean, they're not going to put up with, you know, I don't know, practicing your own religion, for you know, in their country, for example, or something like that. You know, it could happen. So you have to be wary. I mean, especially a lot of Christians in the Middle East face persecution and are being like actually, you know, killed in by the hundreds. And like Israel is supporting that, which is horrible, right?
Well,
the West is supporting that. The West is supporting
well,
NATO.
I mean, this has been happening since the beginning of time. I mean, even in the like 900, you know, BC. I mean, sorry, AD. I mean, you look at the old, you know, old wars that were taking place in Europe, pre-Germania, with the Ottoman Empire and all this and that. I mean, people went to war mindlessly. They just went to war because they didn't want themselves to be taken out in the process. You know, and it kind of rings a note that nothing has actually fucking changed. Nothing has changed. Despite all of our technology, despite everything that we're brilliant for, our mentality as a human race has not fucking changed, because we are still just as divided as we were before, because the puppeteers, the people that are in control of the information system are still they're pulling the strings and leaving us just as much in tow as we ever were. I don't think
definitely.
I don't think
Essentially, we're so primitive.
nothing has changed.
We're primitive people with technology we don't understand.
Yeah, exactly. It hasn't changed. I mean, look at all of the popular culture that has been. I can't listen to like 90% of the popular music nowadays.
All right.
It's unlistenable. All right. I mean, I'm fucking young, and I can't listen to that shit. And that's like some old dude mumbling and look at those young kids pumping that. I know Lil Yachty. I mean, it's just terrible.
I'm
terrible.
the same.
I mean, same. Yeah. I mean, popular culture has just degenerated into complete another, like, I don't know what to call it. It's just circus.
It's a degeneration.
Yeah, it's idiocracy. Like, that's what we have been facing, right?
Hey, let me ask you guys a question. Would you like to continue this on next Sunday and do a part 2 to this?
Next Sunday, sure. Yeah, I think I can do it. Since late night in the evening, I don't do anything, so it's good. Yeah.
All right, because I believe that this is a conversation that could probably go on for a long time. I'm going to shut her down now.
Yeah.
We've been going on for 2.5 hours. It's been a great show. And
Yeah,
this has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been I totally amazing that you, Rob, and Fear Porn Propaganda came on, and like I got a lot of respect for you guys and like the content you cover. It's always well researched, and the topics that interest me, like for example the world domination talked about later, or like the stuff on Ukraine you showed, and it's great. It's great to talk to you guys and like experience some. I guess we help lower the divide. I mean, really, because we can come and talk rationally about everything.
Yeah.
And we can tell you that it's all bullshit, right? We can tell you that.
Yeah. And you know what? Hey, we can basically call the spade a spade, not give a fuck to say it, because you know what? I'm not the kind of person anymore to try and I'm not going to curb my tongue just to not offend somebody. I mean, I'm sorry if you do get offended by anything that I say out to the listeners. I apologize beforehand, because I'm probably going to say something to piss you off if you're easily offended. If not, though, take what I say with a grain of salt, because I pretty much just speak what I feel. And I'm not trying to cause offense. Just don't be a butthurt kid about it, But at the end of the day, though, this is what we're fighting. At the end of the day, this is what we're fighting. We have a whole entire army of people that are just a bunch of butthurt kids, and this is what's coming up against us next.
Yeah.
Forget about
I think the enemy of the people, the enemy of humanity, is let's say the fucking mind control that they're under, inundated to them by the media, by all of these NGOs who sponsor organizations, by philanthropists like George Soros and Rockefellers and so-called philanthropists, because we know that all they do is in their own personal gain. I mean, come on, don't be silly. And as soon as we tell people that this is really what's going on, I hope people can actually be better off mentally, because they don't have to worry about Trump said this and Hillary said that, and it's Kim Jong-un and UCAS and this and that.
When people realize that these people actually don't matter in the big picture of things, they're just figureheads. They're just there for your entertainment, and you don't have to take that seriously. And and don't think your democracy is at stake because you didn't have a democracy to begin with.
You don't have one. Yeah,
That's
exactly right.
It
I
wasn't
mean, look
there.
at CNN. Are you ever going to get somebody on who would, are you ever going to get the balanced opinion that is like saying, the truth about, the wars that are going on or something like that?
Nah.
Or they immediately get shut down as soon as they call out the establishment, or maybe one of the puppet masters that we know about, that we speculate have a lot of influence, right? They would immediately just get shut down or get called. They don't make it on these programs. I mean, the media is completely and utterly controlled by 5 corporations, right?
Absolutely.
And it's just ridiculous. Like you have no democracy because it's either puppet B or puppet A, right? And like China, it's probably even worse because have you seen the stuff that is going on in China right now? They're basically doing a thing where they monitor your good deeds in society and like the bad deeds. And like the bad deeds would, for example, if you talk against their government there, then that would be a bad deed. And then you get like basically a credit score.
I'll be right back.
Good and bad deeds. Have you heard about that? Fear-porn propaganda, Robert? So that's kind of what they've been thinking about instituting there. And that's like 1984 to another level. And like you will now actually, like if you, I don't know, are talking about some of the stuff, I don't know, some of the stuff we would talk about, you would probably be also on a blacklist, right? And you would get that lower credit score on your whatever behavior rating, and then people wouldn't trust you, right? You couldn't make it into politics, maybe, or you couldn't do that. You couldn't, make it into the media. This and that, right? It's total Orwellianism around the globe, basically, and I think this is something we're fighting against. And like, it's like it's Orwellian. Yeah, that's the perfect word for it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like look at 1984 and in the book or the movie and or the film, whatever, and notice that they didn't have much technology in that they were expecting.
You couldn't have anticipated how technology progressed so rapidly, but now we have all that. Like we have chips, we could implement that, right? We have fucking monitoring systems on your devices, on your phones, and like you can basically.
I was hella pissed off earlier today because someone put like the news in front of me, and I ended up seeing something about a barista in San Francisco that's a robot, and it's basically taking barista jobs in San Francisco. And I was like, okay. That's interesting, but like then they ended up saying, "Oh, well, you know what? You'll still have jobs. Like they'll take your jobs, but you'll still be able to have jobs to replace those jobs. You just won't get paid as much." And then also they said you won't get paid in count. They said they'll give you credit. I was like, "Oh my God, what? That's like cashless society shit right there."
That's debt. That's literal debt slavery, basically.
I was like totally triggered by it. Like I started yelling at the TV and the whole thing, and I just like don't even watch the news unless after the fact, and that way I'm not triggered. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I just watched the news.
Like if something happens today, for an example, if something happens today, right, and then it's expressed on the media, and everybody else knows about it or whatever, I just like hide my head in the sand and don't even want to know about it until like tomorrow. And then once I know about it tomorrow, I look back at it today and I'm not affected.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I have to wait. Like, most of the time it's like going to be everything on the same day. Everything's coming out in the same weeks, and then a couple of months later, nobody's talking about it. Well, some of these issues could be like thoroughly investigated for years to come, and like that's stuff that is pretty difficult. Like you cannot figure it out in one day or like the same day it happened.
Yeah, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, because people have a short attention span. Like
Oh,
You know?
God. Fish have a short attention span. People are worse. It's bizarre. I mean, for real, it's really bizarre. Put a person in an uncomfortable situation for more than 3 minutes. You know what they're gonna do? They're either gonna drive away, run away, go to sleep, or get drunk.
Yeah.
Look at that. That's the sun. That's. I'm looking at the sun. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah. I got
That's
it.
how the sun. That's how the. That's how the sun.
I'm
That's
sharing
how
it.
the sun looks from where I'm at, because apparently there's a bunch of fires around me.
Is that Nibiru?
No, it's the sun.
Is that Nibiru coming in? Does it have wings?
I don't know. Ask Zachariah Finchen.
Oh, for the love of Christ.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation for another day, to be fair.
Yeah.
We can get into the whole Anunnaki later.
Guys, I'd love to thank you both for coming in
No,
today.
we need to. We talked about shutting it down. Yeah, a long time ago, like 15 minutes ago. So yeah.
I know, right? We've been still talking.
Yeah.
Classic guys.
Hey.
Anyway, it was good talking to you, FYGP. It's been a while.
Anunnaki rhymes with
been a while.
hockey. And I'm Canadian.
That's right.
So we can get all Anunnaki up in this motherfucker next time.
Yeah, dude. I bet that like the Russian hockey team are all like Greys, man. And a drink by people.
I'm down
I'll
for
bet
that
you, man.
conversation.
I'll bet
That would be a lot of fun to talk about. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything you guys would like to say in closing? We'll start with you, FYGP.
Nothing. Just great talking to you guys, and it's amazing to have these shows, and I think we're making a difference, man. Yeah, it's great.
Well, eventually.
Sometime in 2500, when the world is turned to total shit, somebody's gonna look at this and see that we were right.
Yeah. Well, that's about the slice of it there. Fear porn. What do you got to say, buddy? Or Steve?
Oh, same old. Thanks for having me. It was a great discussion. I didn't really get to talk too much because I was working, but I got to throw in a little bit of information. I didn't really feel necessary though. I mean, because the way you guys were flowing really nicely together. So every once in a while, I wanted to throw in my 2 cents, but it worked, and I had a good time. And it was a lot of information. I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen and kind of follow up on that stuff that you were talking about and do some research on it, because it was interesting.
Right on. Well, we did cover a lot of topics. We kind of glossed over a lot of stuff too, though. But I mean, shit, it just goes to show people that, I mean, there's just so many different mechanisms available at the hands of these puppeteers. I mean, there's so many different ways to divide people and put them against each other. And I mean, everything we talked about tonight was about this. And whether it was,
did you bring up? I missed some of it. Did you bring up any secret society elements?
We barely
we did not.
We barely even got
glossed
there.
over individuals. Individuals we've read a couple of names, but
okay. Well, I would just throw that in at the end. Say
we could fill
in. Big on division.
We could do 2 or 3 hours next
George
weekend
Carlin.
on that.
It's like George Carlin said, it's one big club and you're not in it.
Part 2.
That's a true story. Hey, don't say George Carlin. You're gonna get me a copyright strike, for fuck's sakes.
I know, right? Jesus, that was ridiculous.
Oh, they shut the stream down. They shut the stream down for a few minutes. That's gonna be funny. But guys, I gotta thank you guys for coming out. I really do appreciate it. I'd like to thank all the listeners that came out to listen to this, and post and previous and current. Yeah, thanks for coming along for this journey, and we're gonna have to do this next Sunday.
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, sounds good.
We'll set it for the same time next Sunday. This will be part 2 of the. I don't know. We're gonna have to come up with a good name for this one.
Yeah, we will.
We'll figure it out.
Just like division discussion. I mean, what that's what you're talking about, basically. It's like a discussion about division.
I don't know.
And tactics. You threw in tactics.
Hey, listen. I was thinking about division tactics. All I came up with was short division, long division, and divide by 0.
So it's just math, basically.
Pretty good. I don't know.
I don't know. You divide by 0, and what do you get?
Divide by 0.
0.
You get 1. You get 1. Oh, that's uniting because.
Yeah, you get infinity or something.
You get 2 zeros, and then you have 1 whole circle.
Well, when you divide by 0, you technically get infinity, but I think the creationists and the other guys would love that because, yeah, you get a non-representation as a result. So, anyway, I digress.
Well, you can take a 0 and twist it into an 8 and turn it sideways. It's an infinity symbol.
Wow, you're gonna manhandle a 0 like that? That's just uncouth.
You know it. Making a 0 into a circle into an 8 into infinity.
All right, gentlemen.
That'd be a cool design.
I'm gonna hit the stop streaming button, so I just want to tell everybody that's tuned in, you guys stay on. I'm gonna hit the stop streaming button and just wish everybody a damn good Sunday night. And thanks for coming out. We hope to top this next weekend. And peace.
Peace.